want to throw everybody out. So we get you down there, and then everyone's going to hate you. So, again, what was it about wanting to run for elected office that if you win, that's the way people feel about you?
Well, McGraw, I was born in the district. I grew up in the district. I've been here my entire life. I know the people. I know the businesses. There isn't a place in the district where I haven't had my feet in the ground within a half a mile during my entire lifetime. I know that I have to be accountable to the people in the district. Every day when I go to the grocery store, the gas station, I go to a social event, they're all my friends, and it's my community. And because of that, it causes me to have much more of an obligation to be accountable for the people. So when I go to Jeff City, that's all I'm going to answer to. Part of the situation you're talking about is created because we get a lot of people that go down there, and then they get tied up with either special interests or big money donors, and then they get the positions where they lose their ability to negotiate because they're afraid that it's going to hurt them the next election, or for them trying to move up in politics. I'm a lawyer. That's my job. That's what I do, and that's what I'm going to go back to do when I'm out of session and when it's over. I'm going down for the 4 years. This is the job I've taken. I'm not looking to do anything else. If I do a good job and the people want me back, I'll come back for another 4 years. If not, I'll go right back to my job and continue to do what I've done my entire life.
What do you want to do when you go down there? What's your focus?
Well, I think the focus has to be on improving the economy, and I think we can do that by getting people to work together and reach some common goals in terms of some economic development issues.
Work together?
Yeah.
You read a newspaper recently?
Well, as attorney, that's pretty much all we've done. All I've done my entire career is you get two people in a room that won't even look at each other, try to figure out a way of resolving their issues. So down in Jeff City, it's no different. I take down my negotiation diplomacy skills and try to get everybody to work together. And, you go in the room and you knock it out. And a lot of times you're going to come out with the least offensive conclusion, but at least it's something that everybody can live with. We can move forward and start to improve the situation.
Where are you on Amendment 7, the roads, the sales tax for the roads?
Well, I think that it's unfair to ask the taxpayers, the citizens of Missouri, to foot the bill on an additional tax. So we're being taxed enough. John Lamping, who held the seat, or holds the seat now, and who's actually stepping down from the seat, had a plan which required or talked about having the general budget reapportioned so we can get some more money to transportation. We do need to get more money to transportation. It does need to be funded. Those projects do need to be taken care of, but we need to find ways within the current budget to pay for that and not ask the taxpayers.
Where would you take the money from?
Well, it's not so much taking the money from. What we need to start doing is looking at the different bureaucracies down there and doing value-based accounting. Instead of looking just for fraud, waste, and mismanagement, we have to see if every line item creates a value, and if the value is worth the dollar amount that's going in. If it's not, then we need to reapportion that money, and that money does need to be reapportioned, and it should go to things like transportation.
I thought all the Republicans down there have already done all that, sort of gone line by line and figured out that all the money we spend down there, we spent enough Republicans down there. Shouldn't the money they're spending in that budget be the only money needed in that budget?
Well, they do look at it, but the focus has always been on looking for fraud, waste, and mismanagement, and not so much the value-based.
So you think Senator Lamping hasn't looked at value-based?
Oh, on some of the things.
Yeah.
On some of the things. But what we don't do is...
Like, for example, what's you've looked at this budget. You think there is money to be had. Where is there not value? Where is there money going that we're not getting value from?
Well, let's say they have a line item and there's three people that are doing a certain job, and they are doing the job, and you look at it, and you find out that, well, wait a second, I got three people doing this job while they're all working. We can shift those three people over, eliminate that situation, and one person in another area who's doing kind of the same thing, and there's some overlap, may be able to absorb their work.
Do you have any specifics?
No, not this time. No.
Okay. There's a story in the newspaper that says on your office you have a flag in your office that says "Don't tread on me."
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can assume that you are in support of legalizing marijuana, recreational marijuana in the state of Missouri?
Well, I purchased that flag in the mid-1980s. Both of my parents came to this country as immigrants. You know, it's more personal to me. The flag was purchased as a symbol of, I want my rights, I want my freedoms, and I'm willing to fight for those rights and those freedoms. It subsequently.
Do I have a right to get high in my house on a Saturday night with a weed that I grow?
Not in the state of Missouri.
Do you think that should be legal?
Well, here's what I'm looking at. Certain states do have recreational marijuana, and I think we're going to get the data from those states. We're going to study that data, and then we can make informed decisions.
What do you think we should do?
Well, I can't tell you until I see what those results are from those other states.
If a doctor says to me that I have stage 4 lymphoma and that I need to smoke marijuana to bring my appetite up so I don't starve to death, should I, in the state of Missouri, have a right to have a doctor prescribe medical marijuana to me?
Well, 20 states have medical marijuana. And people need to understand that we've been using opiates and drugs for years, Oxycontin, morphine, codeine, those types of things. If the medical community says that medical marijuana is a necessary tool for pain management and should be prescribed, then we should be doing that in the state of Missouri.
So you are in favor of medical marijuana if my doctor prescribes it?
If the medical community says yes and your doctor prescribes it, then we can take looks.
But right now, that's against the law in the state of Missouri. You'd be in favor of changing that.
That's correct.
Okay. Quickly, while we have you for a couple more minutes, Jack Spooner, our guest, wants to run for the Missouri State House in the 24th District. You have a Republican primary tomorrow, so you have to win the primary, and then we'll talk about the general in a bit, or after you win that. Methamphetamine. Major problem in the state of Missouri. States like Mississippi, that liberal bastion down in Mississippi, has banned over-the-counter sales of cold medicine with pseudoephedrine to help in the fight with meth. Would you be in favor of banning over-the-counter sales of meth in the state of Missouri?
Over-the-counter, no, not
over-the-counter medicine. You need a prescription.
Would I be in favor of banning it?
Would you be in favor of banning over-the-counter sales and needing a prescription to buy cold medicine to help fight the war on meth?
No, I'm not in favor of that. The meth issue is a criminal justice issue. It starts as a criminal justice issue, both at the enforcement level and the courts level. It shouldn't be put as limiting a personal or privacy right in terms of individuals. And also, what happens is, and we do have some limitations here in Missouri. If a family needs some cold medicine, now their medical expenses are going to go up, and they've got to go to a doctor to get a prescription for something that should be over the counter. I think that we need to take a harder look at the enforcement process in the state of Missouri, and maybe tell the pharmacies or the stores that are selling it, like we do with alcohol, and we do it not only in the stores but in the bars, is that the owners also have a responsibility that not to sell to people they suspect of being using it for improper purposes. The people that are buying this, I mean, somebody comes in and is buying a case of
I have to go to a doctor to get a penicillin prescription.
But prescribed medicines are different than over-the-counter medications.
Well, but only because we choose to make them prescription only.
That's right. But what you're doing now is you're creating an additional burden because of a criminal justice issue, and that's, again, goes back to law enforcement and the courts in terms of identifying and prosecuting those people that are going out and are abusing this purchase.
Are you in favor of expanding Medicaid in the state of Missouri?
No, I'm not in favor of expanding Medicaid. I think that we need to look at ways of getting that money into the system, that we need to sit down and have some discussions and figure out if there's a possibility of getting that money here without having the state or without having the federal government tell the state what they have to do and mandate to the states how they have to spend the money.
Kit Bond sat in that very chair and said the state should expand Medicaid and should take the federal money. Is he wrong?
Yes, he is wrong. At some point in time, as we look, Washington has its issues. It has a lot of problems. Washington's broken. We as a state have got to step up and start taking care of ourselves. We have to start telling Washington, look, we should get our proportion of money. We should get our right proportion, but we as a state should decide how we want to spend it. And while the government may say, well, this money has to go to social services or education, once it comes into that pool, then the state should be able to decide, what's the best way that the state can serve its citizens with this money, and not have somebody, a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C., telling us what they think's the best way of doing it.
Somebody in your district, in the 24th district, does not make enough money to qualify for the federal subsidies on the exchange. So therefore, they make too much money to be covered by the current Medicaid situation, but not enough money to be subsidized by the federal exchange. So they sit there with no insurance, in which the federal government, it would provide money to insure them if we accepted it. What do you tell that person from your district who can't afford insurance, makes too much to be subsidized by the state, but not enough to be subsidized by the feds? What do you tell that person who now has no health insurance, and what should that person do to get health insurance?
Well, that's always been an issue. The Medicaid expansion isn't going to solve that. And even,
actually, the Medicaid expansion would solve that problem.
Well, even if it would, to a certain extent, there's a time limit on that. So let's say that person would come out, and under your scenario, they would be able to get insurance for a couple of years. Then what happens once that money is spent? Who takes on the burden of continuing the program?
So you would rather have this person never have health insurance than have it taken away 5 years from now?
No, we need to work on our public health system. There needs to be options for people that don't have insurance. We're always going to have
What should that person do today, though?
Well, just what they always been doing.
Go to the emergency room?
Well, we have a system. There's a system of public medicine where they can go and get care.
To the emergency room?
Well, you say the emergency room, but public medicine, like clinics, certain hospitals, they're going to take patients that are uninsured.
Yeah, hospitals are not allowed to turn these people away. They have to go to the emergency room, and then we end up paying for it.
McGraw, it's a problem that's been around for as long as I've been around, and it's probably a problem that's going to exist. We're not going to solve it with Medicaid expansion. We've got to look.
How should we solve it?
Well, we got to look at better ways of having public health care in terms of.
For example, I mean, what's a better way?
Clinics, hospitals that have funding to provide.
Well, where does that funding come from?
Well, it comes from our social services budget, and it does right now, and it is there. And what we need to do is work on improving that.
But there is a person there who it makes too little to be subsidized by the state, right? And too much, and not enough to be subsidized by the Fed. So there's a large gap of people who are uninsured who can't afford it. What you're telling me today, those people should go where? Because we're rejecting the federal money.
That this problem has been around forever. Whether we take the money or don't take the money, that problem is still going to exist. So if you narrow the pool for a year by taking them in, what happens when it goes away? And you're still not going to capture everybody. The problem you're talking about.
We're not capturing anybody now.
Well, we are, and we do have a certain obligation as a society to provide services to our citizens. Or the state.
Is there anything in the Obamacare legislation that you do like?
Well, I don't particularly think the government should be the federal government should be telling businesses and states how they should run their health care.
Should the states be telling people how to run health care?
No.
So you're against the hemp oil expansion?
No, I wouldn't say that I'm against the hemp oil expansion. But
are you against forcing insurance companies to cover autism as a pre-existing condition?
That's an interesting one. I've never really thought about that. Well, I'd have to look at that.
The Missouri House and Senate passed that, forcing insurance companies to cover autism as a pre-existing, to do away with that.
That's something I'd have to take a look at. I can't say that that's something that I would agree with.
It seems to me like the Missouri legislature picks and chooses what they want to cover and what they don't want to cover.
See that maybe when people ask me questions like that and hypotheticals on what I would do, it's really hard for me to express an opinion without having actually looking at the wording and seeing what we're talking about.
Right, but that's not a hypothetical, though, because the Missouri House and Senate exempted autism and then forced, and so even though medical marijuana is against the law, hemp oil is now legal. And now the State Department of Agriculture is going to grow marijuana to extract the hemp oil because a state senator's kid thinks it might be beneficial.
Okay. Now, I don't know what they looked at, what the wording was, and what exactly they were deciding on at the time. I mean, in generalities, it's like these amendments we have today, we're going to have tomorrow on our ballot.
Right.
These amendments are summaries that the Secretary of State's office puts on the ballot. It summarizes a much larger, much more detailed proposal. And what we need to do is, before you vote on these things, you need to look at the larger, more detailed proposal rather than just the little summary they give you, to make sure what you're voting on, that you understand it and that it says what you think it means. So when you ask me about voting on a bill with a hemp oil, without me looking at it and not being part of it, it's hard for me to comment. I mean, as a general proposition, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I without having something in front of me.
Jack Spooner, running for Missouri State Senate, 24th District. Last question for you. Rick Stream or Tony Pasusa? Who are you voting for?
Well, I know Rick and I know Tony, and I like them both. And I really think, as myself running in a primary, I don't think it's right for another primary person to endorse somebody else in another race that also has a primary.
So you don't think it's right to endorse a person, but it's okay to give your opinion on an amendment?
Well, I didn't give my opinion on an amendment.
Yeah, you did. Amendment 7. You said you're voting against it.
I said I think it's unfair to ask the taxpayers to bear the burden, and I'm voting against it. That is my opinion.
Right.
But it's not. But I'm not. When you ask for my opinion, I'm not giving an endorsement on what somebody else should do.
Do you have an opinion on Rick Stream and Tony Pasusa?
Yeah, Rick and Tony are both qualified. Both
Is one more qualified than the other?
Well, that's really hard to say. Rick brings certain skill sets in. Tony brings a certain skill set in, and some people are going to like Rick's skill set. Some people are going to like Tony's skill set. I think
which one do you like?
Well, I like over the Democrat. I like them both.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Spooner. I did the best I could in Missouri State Center, 24th District. Jack, good luck.
Hey, thank you, Matt.
7:37. We are super late. Traffic and weather and news next on KTRS.
Hi, this is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. If you want to make smart choices about your retirement planning, listen to my show, Straight Talk on Retirement, this Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big 550 KTRS.